when you're on a bomb run, the bombardier is sighting on the target, and it's straight and level from then on. And the Nazis know this. They also know that their cannon shells will go up about 1,000 feet a second. And their rangefinders establish our altitude, like, say, 25,000 feet. They set their fuses to explode at 25 seconds. Then they figure, if we're here, where will we be in 25 seconds? So they have that convergence. And they'd come awfully close. Sometimes I have to say too close. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, raised in Niagara Falls, New York.
Did you have an interest in flying when you were young?
Yes, very much.
How did that start?
Well, I was born just 5 years after World War I was over. And at that time, the Curtiss Jenny and the French Spad were the planes that I was interested in. And at a young age, a plane would fly over and we'd run outside, airplane, airplane. You know, it wasn't like today, of course.
How did you hear about the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor?
Over the radio and newspapers.
What was your reaction at the time?
Pretty much like everyone else's, would probably take care of those grass huts in a couple of weeks.
And were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
And why did you choose the Air Corps, so you could fly?
Yes.
Where did you go for training and then flight school?
I went to Maxwell Field, Alabama, for pre-flight, then started my training in Avon Park, Florida, flying the Stearman biplane. That was not only the first time I've ever been inside of an airplane, but the first time I ever went up in an airplane. So it was quite a thrill. In advanced training, we went twin engine in a beach, and then going into four engine wasn't really a big deal. It's like my primary instructor said, you're going to fly all kinds of different equipment, but remember, they're all stick and rudder. They all respond the same way that you put into it. And the B-17 really was an easy airplane to fly.
So you were a co-pilot at first, right?
Yes.
Tell me about the rest of your crew.
Well, we had the pilot, or left seat, and I was in the right seat, and had a bombardier and navigator in the nose. The top turret gunner was directly behind the pilots, had two 50 caliber machine guns. Then as you go on down the airplane, you pass the bomb bay and you have a little radio room with a radio operator. Then further down in the waist, you have a gunner on each side called left and right waist gunners, and a tail gunner flying backwards on a bicycle seat. Oh, I forgot the ball turret underneath, yeah.
What went into each mission? How did you prepare for the mission before you even took off? And what was the takeoff and formation process like?
Well, when we became operational, we'd be asleep in a Quonset hut. And the door would fly open sometimes 3 in the morning. The light would come on, and the CQ, the charge of quarters, would be standing there shouting at us. Up and at 'em, fly boys, rise and shine, off your back and out of the sack, you know. And then, let's go, up, up, up. Interesting story connected to that. Our bombardier got tired of it one day and threw his shoe at him. It went skidding across the floor. He wasn't trying to hit him. But when he walked out, he says, I hope your accuracy improves somewhat later today. I think that was the only time we laughed getting ready for combat.
So when did you get your briefing?
After we had breakfast. We'd eat all we could, because it could be 10 or 11 hours before we'd eat again. People would say, why? Take a lunch up there. Yeah, 25,000 feet, it's 45 and 50 below zero. Your lunch is not going to be edible very long. But after breakfast, we'd go to the briefing room and all sit and wait for the commanding officer to come out. We'd all jump to attention. And he would announce where we were going, generally why we were going there. They'd bring a kind of a blackboard out, and it'd have a map with a ribbon tied from our base to the target. And if it was Berlin, everybody would go, "Oh no!" But yeah, and then they'd also tell us what kind of bombs we were carrying, the weather report, and the position each one of us would be flying in an 18 aircraft formation. So when that was taken care of, we'd go out and get on trucks, and they'd drop us off at our airplanes that were dispersed around the perimeter of the field. Get aboard, go through a pre-flight cockpit check, start up the engines, check them, give the ground crew the signal to pull the chocks out in front of the wheels, and release the brakes and go out and stand in line, wait for the takeoff time.
For those who serve, for those whose sacrifice will never end, the Gary Sinise Foundation shows its gratitude through entertainment, outreach, and life-changing support. To learn more, visit GarySiniseFoundation.org.
You mentioned how cold it was on board.
Yeah.
What were the temperatures, and how did you deal with that cold?
Well, when you get up to 25,000 feet or above, it would always be 45 to 50 below zero inside the airplane. You dealt with it by, the two pilots had a heater blowing hot air on us. And I would dress with a leather jacket and wool pants and sheepskin boots and warm gloves, and that was it. I didn't want that heater to go out. But carry a whole set of sheepskin clothes in case that happened. The rest of the crew had electrical heated suits, just like an electric blanket. And they'd plug it in their spot, have a rheostat. Never heard any complaining.
Wow, that's pretty smart for that time.
Yeah, we did a lot of smart things.
So, as you're in formation and approaching a target, what would be the procedure?
Well, the lead aircraft in the lead group, lead squadron, would be on autopilot all that time. And as he turned, we'd get to the initial point, the IP, and he would turn for the first time towards the target. And from there to the target would be the bomb run. He would switch the vertical control of the aircraft over to the Norden bomb site that his bombardier would be using. So the bombardier has a vertical and a horizontal crosshair. Now, if he changes the vertical here, say the target, he drifts to the left, the target's here, so as he pulls it back, the aircraft will automatically follow and pick up the corrected heading. When the right time comes, out come his bombs. He shouts, "Bombs away." They have colored ribbons on them. All of the other bombardiers have their thumb on a toggle switch. And when they see that and hear bombs away, they shove that forward. And people say, well, you thought all the bombardiers would be sighting on the target. Well, think. The target's here. You got a squadron of 6 airplanes. They're all sighting on the target. When they get to the target, they're all going to run together and crash. If they're accurate, you know. And so this had the lead bombardier do it. If we were bombing a factory or a fairly enclosed situation, you've got, if we're carrying 500-pound general purpose bombs, which generally we did, you got 216 bombs all going down at once on a salvo. And it doesn't take a lot to wipe out a target. A lot of them are going to miss because we got to be careful not to slide underneath each other and have the bombs come down through, you know, up on the higher squadron. So we have to spread out a little bit. And there's going to be what they call collateral damage on the outside. You can't help that. But yeah, and if it's an oil refinery or marshalling yards, railroad yards, maybe an airfield that the Nazis have taken over, we do a train bomb where you've probably seen coming out like that. About every half second one comes out. And so they hit the ground like that and just try to destroy a larger area.
How would you describe the amount of anti-aircraft fire and enemy fighters that you had to deal with?
Well, we only had about 3 fighter attacks. That was quite different than the first 8th Air Force guys that got over there. I really don't know the reason exactly, but we were getting more and more bombers. And they just couldn't attack all of our groups. They didn't have enough fighters. And then we got our fighters over there, P-51 and a P-47, and they engaged the Luftwaffe as well as escort us.
How did you deal with flak?
Well, the deal would be not to be afraid of it. There isn't a thing you can do about it. When you're on a bomb run, the bombardier is sighting on the target, and it's straight and level from then on. And the Nazis know this. And if he tries to, people say, can you take evasive action? Where? You don't know where those shells are going to burst. The ones that are there have not bothered you. It's the ones that you haven't seen yet that are going to, you don't know where it's going to happen. You might evasive action right into one of them. They also know that their cannon shells will go up about 1,000 feet a second. And their rangefinders establish our altitude, like say 25,000 feet. They set their fuses to explode at 25 seconds. Then they figure if we're here, where will we be in 25 seconds? So they have that convergence. And they'd come awfully close. Sometimes I have to say too close.
Well, you had 35 missions that were successful, obviously.
Yeah.
Some of them were a little more harrowing than others, including your 4th mission, in which you claimed to return with more than 300 holes in your B-17.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I think we got into the jet stream. I say we, the lead aircraft. You know, we're following along like lemmings. We just do what we're supposed to do, formation always. And it slowed us down because to keep a straight course, you have to turn into the wind. So you're going like that. But it really slows you down. Our ground speed, which would be around 200 miles an hour without any wind, probably reduced to about 100. We were in flak for almost a half hour by all of those guns. And I knew we were taking a lot of hits. You could hear it going through the airplane, coming through that aluminum skin. Not a good sound. And when we got back, now I was still flying in the right seat at the time, but I was doing a lot of the flying. It's hard to I don't want to get into that, but it was a co-pilot situation. And when we landed and decided to count the holes, got tired of counting at 300 holes. It could have been 4 because we didn't even get underneath. Nothing vital had been hit, none of the crew had been hurt. Just everything worked.
That's amazing that no one was injured.
And you couldn't tell that airplane was so well built that you couldn't tell there were holes in the plane.
And that was the end of that plane's use in bombing runs, right?
Well, they always patch the holes, but the aluminum patches stick out about 1/8 of an inch beyond the skin of the plane. They had so many patches on it that it slowed the plane down, and it was no longer operational. It could stay with the formation if you added power. You're not going to get home because you're going to be burning more fuel. So they take all of the armament out of it, make it light, paint a WW for WWII on the vertical stabilizer, and use it as a taxi, going to different airfields on business most of the time.
Now, about halfway through your 35 missions, you moved from co-pilot to pilot. Is that about right?
That's pretty close, yeah.
What differences did you institute as the pilot, if any?
Well, there was a little problem. I was checked out as a pilot, but where was my crew? I had to wait for a crew to form. My lieutenant colonel, commanding officer, said that he checked me out. He gave me 2 landings to make. And he said, instead of saying you made it, he said, do you mind still flying in the right seat until I can get you your own crew? And I said, yes, sir. And it'll be okay.
I want to talk about one other specific mission that was rather intense. You had a close call while bombing a Messerschmitt factory outside of Leipzig.
Yeah.
Tell me what you faced that day and how you dealt with it.
Well, I had learned a trick on a handle feeder. We headed down the bomb run at Leipzig, and the shell came up right underneath the first volley. Instead of seeing it out there starting to burst all around, the first was right underneath the plane. The plane bounced into the air. Very unexpected, very violent, and it scared me. And I was trying to think of some way of getting rid of the fear, and I couldn't, except in about 10 seconds I became ashamed of myself, and that did it. And then I got angry at the Germans for making me go through that fear situation, and that helped. And here I am, okay, angry at them, and another shell bursts out here, a little higher than us. I think 3 holes came through the nose, and I said, you missed me. And I knew it wasn't going to change the war, you know, but you get tired of feeling like a wood duck in a carnival shooting gallery up there. You want to throw something at them. And then I called the ball turret gunner, and it went like this. Pilot the ball over. Ball, you okay, Art? Yeah, but can you be a little more careful up there? And then our radio man, also right where it exploded, says, I'm going to take 2 in case you're interested. They're making jokes and we're getting shot at. But yeah, that was my Leipzig situation. It was a tough mission on the 8th Air Force. I think a lot of planes were shot up pretty badly.
What was it like knowing that you had completed your 35th mission and that you had completed your 35 missions?
Well, not as gratifying as you would think. You kind of hated to let go of the reins. You know, there was a time where missions became so predictable that you weren't awfully afraid of them anymore. It was almost a routine. It's hard to explain. Maybe your courage had been built up, but we kept thinking about the importance of what we were doing. I figure the 8th Air Force changed Hitler's strategy from offense to defense, and it allowed our troops to much more easily take over Germany.
What are you most proud of from your service?
I have to go back to World War II and the way I felt. I was proud to be part of destroying part of Hitler's war machine, and I did it well, and I did it right, and I got decorated for it.